Did you know that 70% of lottery winners go broke within 5 years? It's the same reason why 78% of NFL players face financial distress just 2 years after retirement. The problem isn't how much money they make. It's these 3 destructive habits. Today I'm comparing 2 case studies, Michael and Sarah. They started with identical incomes, but after 10 years, Michael has a net worth 6 times higher than Sarah's. The difference? 3 specific money behaviors that I'll break down step by step, showing you exactly how to avoid Sarah's mistakes. Meet Michael and Sarah. Same starting point, different destinations. Imagine 2 college graduates walking into the same office building on the same Monday morning, starting identical $50,000 jobs. Meet Michael and Sarah, both 22 years old, fresh out of state university with business degrees, and eager to begin their careers in the same mid-sized city. Same education, same starting salary, same apartment complex, even similar student loan debt. 2 young professionals with virtually identical financial starting lines. But fast forward 10 years, and you wouldn't believe they started from the same place. Michael, now 32, has built a net worth of $300,000. His investment accounts are growing steadily. He's got a comfortable emergency fund, and he's on track to hit 7 figures before 40. Sarah, also 32, is still living paycheck to paycheck despite several promotions. Her net worth? Just $50,000, and most of that is tied up in retirement accounts she can't access. Let's peek at their financial snapshots. Michael has a diversified portfolio worth $180,000 spread across index funds, a Roth IRA maxed out yearly, and a healthy 401k with employer matching. His modest home has built $70,000 in equity, and he maintains a $50,000 emergency fund that doubles as opportunity capital when investments go on sale during market dips. Sarah's financial picture tells a different story. She has $20,000 in her 401k and about $30,000 in home equity. But those assets are offset by $15,000 in credit card debt spread across 6 cards, a $35,000 car loan, and thousands in store credit accounts. Every month is a juggling act between minimum payments and essential bills. What's fascinating about Michael and Sarah isn't just where they ended up, but how they got there. Neither received an inheritance that jump-started their wealth. Neither won the lottery or landed a magical 6-figure job after year 2. Neither had wealthy parents covering their expenses or special connections that turbocharged their careers. In fact, they experienced nearly identical career trajectories, with similar promotions and raises over the decade. The massive wealth gap between them came down to something much more subtle. Hundreds of small daily decisions that compounded dramatically over time. While their paychecks looked similar each month, what they did with those paychecks couldn't have been more different. Think of their financial journeys like 2 identical seeds planted in the same soil. One grew into a flourishing tree, the other barely survived. Same potential, wildly different outcomes based on consistent care and attention. To understand exactly what created this wealth gap, we're going to use what's called the 4MAT learning system to break down each wealth-building habit. For each key behavior, we'll explore why it matters, what it looks like in practice, how to implement it, and what-if scenarios showing the impact of these choices. This framework will give you both the understanding and the practical tools to transform your own financial trajectory. The wealth gap between Michael and Sarah comes down to 3 specific behaviors that either build or destroy wealth over time. These aren't complicated investment strategies or get-rich-quick schemes. They're straightforward habits that anyone can implement, regardless of income level. They don't require special talent, insider knowledge, or incredible discipline. They simply require awareness and consistent action. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how Michael built $300,000 in wealth on a middle-class salary, while Sarah remained financially trapped despite making the same money. More importantly, you'll know precisely which of their habits you're currently following in your own financial life. The first wealth-building behavior revolves around how they handled income increases. The second focuses on their fundamentally different approaches to debt. And the third examines how they managed, or failed to manage, their financial education. Together, these 3 behaviors created a financial chasm between 2 people who started in identical positions. Why? The real cost of lifestyle inflation. When Michael and Sarah both got that first promotion from $50,000 to $60,000, Their bank accounts enjoyed the same boost, but their financial futures took radically different turns. That exciting $10,000 raise should have been a wealth-building milestone for both of them, but for Sarah, it became the first step down a dangerous path that would ultimately keep her finances stagnant for years to come. Let's talk about a sneaky wealth killer called lifestyle inflation. It's the tendency to increase your spending whenever your income rises. This seemingly innocent behavior prevents wealth accumulation by ensuring that no matter how much more you earn, you never actually get ahead. Sarah's excitement was through the roof when her boss called her in for that first promotion, an extra $833 per month before taxes. She immediately started making plans for all the upgrades she'd been dreaming about. After all, she deserved it after working so hard, right? Within just 3 months of that promotion, Sarah's additional income had completely vanished. Let's break down exactly where it went. First, she moved to that nicer apartment across town, adding $300 to her monthly housing costs. Then came the car upgrade, trading in her reliable but boring sedan for something sportier with a $200 higher payment. Her food budget expanded too, as she started dining at more upscale restaurants to the tune of an extra $200 monthly. And those premium subscriptions? Streaming services, meal kits, and a fancy gym membership added another $100 per month. Just like that, Sarah's entire raise was gone. $800 of her $833 monthly increase was now permanently committed to ongoing expenses. And the most dangerous part? She didn't even realize what had happened. Michael, meanwhile, took a completely different approach when he received that identical promotion. Instead of upgrading his lifestyle, he maintained the same modest apartment, kept driving his paid-off car, and continued his reasonable spending habits. The difference? He immediately set up an automatic transfer to divert that additional $833 per month straight into his investment accounts. This pattern continued with each subsequent promotion and raise they received. Sarah's lifestyle expanded in lockstep with her income. A bigger apartment became a condo purchase with a hefty mortgage. The sporty car was traded for a luxury model, and her spending in every category continued to climb. With each income increase, her expenses rose to match, leaving her savings rate completely stagnant. Michael's investment accounts, however, told a different story. That initial $833 monthly investment grew steadily through compound returns. And with each subsequent raise, he added even more to his investment contributions while allowing himself small, strategic lifestyle improvements that didn't eat up his entire income increase. This is far from unusual behavior. Research has uncovered a startling statistic. 78% of Americans increase their spending within months of receiving income increases. This automatic response to earning more creates a perpetual cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, even as those paychecks grow larger. The opportunity cost of Sarah's lifestyle inflation is staggering when viewed over a decade. Let's do some rough math. $800 per month invested over 10 years at a modest 7% return would have grown to approximately $139,000. And that's just from the first promotion. When you add the missed investment opportunities from subsequent raises, the gap becomes enormous. Sarah's behavior illustrates a pattern financial experts call lifestyle stacking, where each income increase triggers a new set of lifestyle upgrades that become permanent fixtures in your budget. The average cost increases associated with these upgrades can lead to a dramatic reduction in financial flexibility over time. You essentially become trapped by your own lifestyle, dependent on ever-increasing income just to maintain your standard of living. Most concerning is how this lifestyle inflation often goes completely unnoticed. It's not a single dramatic purchase that ruins your finances. It's the slow, steady expansion of what you consider normal spending. Sarah didn't feel like she was being extravagant. Each individual upgrade seemed reasonable and affordable at the time. It was only years later, looking at her stagnant savings despite significant income growth, that the pattern became clear. What? The invisible forces driving lifestyle inflation. Sarah's spending decisions seemed logical to her at the time, but were they truly her own choices? Every time you scroll through Instagram or TikTok, powerful psychological forces are being weaponized against your wallet in ways most people never recognize until their bank accounts reveal the damage. Behind Sarah's spending habits lurked 3 invisible forces that secretly hijacked her financial decisions. The first and most powerful is social comparison. Each time Sarah opened Instagram, she was bombarded with carefully curated images of friends enjoying exotic vacations, showing off new cars, or dining at trendy restaurants. What she didn't see was the financial reality behind those posts, the credit card debt, the depleted savings accounts, or the financial stress that often accompanied those picture-perfect moments. Did you know that 66% of younger consumers admit their spending is significantly influenced by social media personalities they follow? That's not coincidence, it's by design. Social media platforms have perfected the art of triggering comparison and desire through algorithmic content delivery. They know exactly what makes you reach for your wallet. For Sarah, this constant exposure created a warped perception of what was normal spending. When her college roommate posted about her weekend getaway, Sarah felt behind. When her coworker shared photos of a new living room set, Sarah's furniture suddenly felt shabby and outdated. Each post subtly communicated, "This is the standard. Are you keeping up?" The second invisible force driving Sarah's spending was what financial psychologists call the entitlement mentality. After putting in long hours at work and securing that promotion, Sarah began justifying her upgrades with a familiar refrain, "I work so hard, I deserve this." This mindset transformed luxuries into necessities and wants into needs. What makes this thinking so dangerous is that it feels completely justified. Sarah wasn't splurging impulsively, she was rewarding herself for her accomplishments. She earned that upgrade. This psychological trick bypasses our normal financial caution by connecting spending to self-worth and achievement. The more Sarah accomplished professionally, the more entitled she felt to spend on herself. The third invisible force pulling Sarah's financial strings was hedonic adaptation, our brain's frustrating tendency to quickly return to baseline happiness regardless of positive changes in our circumstances. That new apartment that thrilled Sarah when she first moved in? Within months, it just became home. Nothing special, just the place she lived. That excitement faded, and Sarah needed something new to recapture that fleeting feeling of satisfaction. This psychological treadmill creates a never-ending cycle. Upgrade, adapt, seek new upgrade. The $60 dinners that once felt special became routine. The premium subscription services became expected. Nothing maintained its satisfaction value, pushing Sarah to constantly seek the next dopamine hit through spending. Even Sarah's physical environment amplified these forces. When she moved to that nicer neighborhood, she unknowingly stepped into a different spending ecosystem. Her new neighbors had different consumption patterns, more expensive cars and driveways, professional landscaping, frequent renovations. Living among people with higher spending habits normalized a more expensive lifestyle, making it seem reasonable rather than excessive. What Sarah didn't realize is that marketing teams understand these psychological vulnerabilities better than most psychologists. Targeted advertising doesn't just show you products. It specifically triggers these comparison instincts and entitlement feelings. When Sarah searched online for a new coffee table, she suddenly saw ads for entire living room sets. When she browsed vacation destinations, her feed filled with luxury travel experiences you deserve. This sophisticated ecosystem of triggers is particularly effective because it operates below our conscious awareness. Sarah never thought, "I'm spending more to keep up with social media influencers." She thought, "This purchase makes sense for my current lifestyle." The manipulation happens so subtly that we believe the decisions are entirely our own. Most concerning is how these forces compound and reinforce each other. Social comparison triggers feelings of entitlement, which are temporarily satisfied by purchases, which then become normalized through hedonic adaptation, creating the need for new comparisons and purchases. It's a self-perpetuating cycle designed to keep you consuming rather than accumulating wealth. How? Michael's strategy for avoiding the lifestyle inflation trap. Breaking free from that self-perpetuating cycle isn't just possible, it's actually simpler than most people think. While Sarah continued to escalate her spending with each pay increase, Michael implemented a completely different system that allowed his wealth to grow exponentially. What's fascinating isn't that Michael has some superhuman willpower. He faces the exact same advertising, social media pressure, and lifestyle temptations as Sarah. The difference is that he's built a psychological firewall between his income and his spending. At the core of Michael's approach is what behavioral economists call a wealth-first mindset. Unlike most people who treat savings as whatever's left after spending, Michael flips this equation entirely. The moment his paycheck lands, Wealth building takes priority before a single dollar gets allocated to everyday expenses. I don't save what's left after spending. I spend what's left after saving. Michael explains, echoing a philosophy that has become his financial operating system. This mindset shift manifests through his automatic wealth transfer system, a simple yet powerful structure that removes both decision fatigue and temptation from the equation. Instead of receiving his full paycheck in his checking account, Michael has set up direct deposits that immediately route money to various investment accounts before he ever sees it. This automation is genius in its simplicity. When that promotion came through, Michael immediately updated his direct deposit instructions to send the additional $833 straight to his investment accounts. By never seeing this money in his checking account, he never had to exercise willpower to avoid spending it. The system did the heavy lifting for him. But what about those inevitable moments when desire strikes? Michael employs what he calls the 30-day desire rule to combat impulse purchases. Whenever he feels the urge to buy something non-essential, he writes it down in a note on his phone along with the date and price. After 30 days, he revisits the item and asks himself, do I still want this as much as I did a month ago? Remarkably, he finds that roughly 70% of these desires simply evaporate over that 30-day cooling period. This single habit has saved him thousands by preventing emotional spending that would have delivered minimal long-term satisfaction. For major purchases that pass the 30-day test, Michael employs a happiness per dollar evaluation system. Rather than asking, can I afford this? A question that typically leads to payment-focused thinking. He asks, how many hours of genuine joy will this purchase provide, divided by its cost? This calculation reveals some surprising insights. A $3,000 vacation that creates lasting memories and 14 days of happiness might provide more value than a $3,000 TV upgrade that delivers novelty for just a few weeks before hedonic adaptation kicks in. Perhaps most interesting is how Michael creates spending firewalls through his social connections. He maintains diverse friend groups with different spending habits, allowing him to enjoy various lifestyles without feeling pressured to adopt the most expensive one permanently. I have friends who love camping and hiking, activities that cost almost nothing, Michael says. And I have other friends who enjoy fine dining and travel. By maintaining these separate social circles, I can enjoy both experiences without feeling like the expensive lifestyle needs to become my everyday reality. This social diversification prevents the lifestyle creep that often happens when people surround themselves exclusively with big spenders. By regularly experiencing joy through low-cost activities, Michael maintains perspective about what truly brings him happiness. The research backs up Michael's approach. Studies consistently show that delayed gratification correlates strongly with higher net worth across all income levels. One recent survey found that 66% of consumers have cut back on non-essentials due to financial pressures, but those who had already built Michael's habits were far less affected by economic fluctuations. The psychological power of these mechanisms cannot be overstated. By creating distance between income increases and spending decisions, Michael short-circuits the automatic consumption response that traps most people. His system works because it acknowledges and redirects our psychological tendencies rather than fighting against them with willpower alone. What if? The alternative timeline for Sarah. Let's run an alternative timeline for Sarah. What if instead of automatically upgrading her lifestyle with each promotion, she had followed Michael's approach? The transformation in her financial situation would be nothing short of remarkable. Picture Sarah at that first promotion moment. The extra $833 per month hits her bank account, but instead of apartment hunting and car shopping, she maintains her existing lifestyle. Just like Michael, she sets up an automatic transfer, routing that new income directly to investment accounts before lifestyle temptation can take hold. That single decision, redirecting just $800 monthly, would completely alter Sarah's financial trajectory. At a modest 7% average market return, that $800 monthly investment would grow to approximately $130,000 after 10 years. And that's from just her first promotion's extra income. When we factor in Sarah's subsequent raises and promotions handled the same way, the numbers become even more striking. The compounding effect of starting early is perhaps the most powerful force in personal finance. Had Sarah begun investing that $800 monthly at age 22 instead of upgrading her lifestyle, The difference by age 32 would be staggering. Every 5-year delay in starting to invest can literally cost hundreds of thousands in potential retirement funds due to the exponential nature of compound returns. What's particularly eye-opening is that this alternative Sarah wouldn't need to live like a monk or extreme frugalist. She'd simply need to maintain her perfectly comfortable post-college lifestyle rather than escalating her spending with each income boost. The math is both simple and profound. $800 monthly times 120 months with compound growth equals financial transformation. In this alternative timeline, Sarah would have roughly the same $300,000 net worth as Michael by age 32. This despite having identical education, starting at the same company, receiving the same promotions, and earning the same income throughout the decade. The only difference: what happened to the money after it hit their bank accounts? Financial literacy plays a crucial role in this scenario. Research consistently shows that individuals with higher financial literacy make more informed investment decisions, leading to significantly better long-term financial outcomes. Alternative Sarah would understand that lifestyle inflation isn't just about spending more. It's about systematically eliminating her future wealth. Let's visualize the stark contrast between these two Sarahs at age 32. Actual Sarah: $20,000 in her 401k, $30,000 in home equity, but $15,000 in credit card debt and a $35,000 car loan, for a net worth of about $50,000. Alternative Sarah: $130,000 from her first promotion's investments alone, plus additional investments from subsequent raises, a modest but growing home equity, and no high-interest consumer debt. Total net worth: approximately $300,000. The psychological freedom of this alternative timeline extends beyond numbers. Alternative Sarah wouldn't experience the constant financial stress of living paycheck to paycheck. She wouldn't feel the creeping anxiety of credit card statements or the nagging worry about retirement. Instead, she'd have options: the freedom to consider career changes, extended travel, or even early retirement. The most powerful realization from this alternative timeline is that it requires no additional income. Sarah doesn't need a side hustle, a second job, or a wealthy relative leaving her an inheritance. She simply needs to redirect money that's already coming her way before lifestyle inflation consumes it. And here's the good news for the real Sarah, and for anyone watching this video: you can start today. While you can't recover the compounding you've missed, you can stop the bleeding immediately. The next raise, bonus, or income increase represents a fresh opportunity to choose the alternative timeline. Every $100 you redirect from lifestyle inflation to investments today will be worth significantly more in the future. The surprising connection between your pay raise and why you're still broke is simple but powerful. Your raise isn't making you wealthier because you're spending it before it can grow. Breaking this: why? The debt difference between Michael and Sarah. Behind every affordable monthly payment hides a financial reality that most people never calculate. While lifestyle inflation gradually consumed Sarah's income increases, debt was silently working as an even more powerful wealth destroyer in her financial life. Let's peel back the curtain on how debt created a massive difference between Michael and Sarah's financial trajectories. When Sarah considers a purchase, she instinctively asks herself one question: can I afford the monthly payment? This payment-focused mindset has led her down a dangerous path. Rather than evaluating the total cost or calculating the long-term interest burden, she's made decisions based solely on whether she could squeeze another payment into her monthly budget. Take a look at Sarah's current debt portfolio: a $25,000 car loan at 6% interest, $15,000 in credit card debt spread across multiple cards at a staggering 22% interest, $30,000 in student loans at 5%, and $5,000 in furniture financing at 15%. On the surface, each of these seemed like a reasonable decision at the time. The payments fit into her budget, after all. But here's what Sarah never calculated. Her credit card debt alone generates over $3,300 in interest annually if she's only making minimum payments. That's almost a month's salary simply evaporating into thin air. And that's just one piece of her debt puzzle. Michael took a fundamentally different approach to debt from day one. While he's not completely debt-free, he follows a strict rule: only use debt for appreciating assets or investments that will generate returns higher than the interest rate. His mortgage might be his only debt, a strategic decision since real estate typically appreciates over time and provides tax advantages. For everything else, cars, furniture, vacations, electronics, Michael saves until he can pay cash. When tempted by those no interest for 12 months, offers that Sarah frequently accepts, Michael runs the numbers and recognizes the traps that retailers set to encourage overspending. The research on debt's impact is clear and shocking. Households with consumer debt have a 38% lower net worth compared to those without debt, regardless of income level. This statistic powerfully illustrates why Sarah, despite earning a healthy salary with regular raises, still struggles financially while Michael builds wealth. But the damage doesn't stop at the interest paid. Sarah's debt creates a double financial penalty that compounds over time. While she's paying thousands in interest each year, she's simultaneously prevented from investing that money. This opportunity cost, the potential growth of those funds had they been invested instead, creates an invisible drain on her wealth-building potential. Let's put some real numbers to this. If Sarah redirected just the $3,300 she pays annually in credit card interest to investments earning a modest 7% return, she'd have over $47,000 after 10 years. Add in the interest from her other debts, and we're talking about a six-figure difference in net worth, all without Sarah changing her income one bit. What's particularly insidious about debt is how it operates below our conscious awareness. The brain processes debt differently than cash transactions, activating different neural pathways. Research published in the Journal of Consumer Research shows that emotional factors significantly influence spending behavior. The insula, the part of our brain that processes unpleasant experiences, plays a key role in how we perceive debt and spending, often leading to irrational financial decisions. For Sarah, each affordable monthly payment seemed logical in isolation. But collectively, these decisions created a financial prison where a substantial portion of her income was committed before she even received her paycheck. The freedom and options that Michael enjoys, from taking calculated risks on investments to having the flexibility to change careers, remain out of reach for Sarah. The wealth gap between Michael and Sarah isn't primarily about income. It's about where that income goes. While Michael's money works for him through investments and strategic debt decisions, Sarah's money continuously flows out to lenders, creating wealth for financial institutions instead of herself. What? The psychological debt traps Sarah fell into. While Sarah's money flows straight to lenders, there's something even more powerful at play than just poor financial decisions. Her brain is literally being hacked. Credit card companies don't just randomly market to consumers. They've invested millions studying exactly how to bypass your logical thinking and trigger impulsive spending through specific psychological triggers. Let's examine the 3 psychological debt traps that captured Sarah and continue to ensnare millions of Americans every day. The first is what financial psychologists call payment focus. When Sarah shops, her brain doesn't naturally calculate the total cost of purchases. Instead, it fixates on whether she can handle the monthly payment. Can I afford $50 a month? Feels much more manageable than can I afford $1,300 total? Even though choosing the payment plan means paying $300 more in the end. This payment focus is precisely why car dealerships prominently advertise monthly payments rather than sticker prices, and why furniture stores plaster no payments until 2025 across their marketing. They understand that our brains struggle to process the long-term financial impact of these decisions. Sarah repeatedly fell for this trap, evaluating each purchase based solely on whether the monthly payment fit her budget, without considering the total cost or interest she'd ultimately pay. The second trap that snared Sarah is temporal discounting. Our brain's tendency to value immediate rewards far more highly than future benefits, even when the future benefits are objectively better. This explains why Sarah couldn't resist buying those designer shoes on credit despite having a savings goal. Her brain experienced an immediate hit of dopamine from the purchase, while discounting the future pain of interest payments and delayed financial freedom. Think about how difficult it feels to save for retirement compared to buying something you want right now. That's temporal discounting in action, and credit card companies weaponize this psychological vulnerability. They know most people will choose immediate gratification over future financial security, which is why their marketing emphasizes how quickly you can have what you want, not how long you'll be paying for it. The third trap is ownership bias, which caused Sarah to overvalue possessing items immediately. Once she mentally owned something, like that living room set she saw in a catalog, letting go of the idea became extraordinarily difficult. She felt entitled to have it now rather than waiting until she could afford it outright. This psychological attachment to ownership before purchase is what makes buy now, pay later options so dangerously effective. What makes these psychological traps particularly powerful is how credit card companies have scientifically engineered their marketing to exploit them. Those 3% minimum payments aren't generous offers. They're carefully calculated to maximize interest payments while giving the illusion of affordability. Introductory rates and cashback rewards trigger our reward centers while obscuring the long-term costs. The science behind this manipulation is fascinating. Research reveals that our brains actually process debt differently from cash transactions. When we consider paying with cash, a region called the insula, associated with pain and discomfort, activates, making us less willing to spend. But credit cards and digital payments bypass this natural warning system entirely, allowing us to spend without triggering the psychological pain that would normally protect our finances. This explains why studies consistently show people spend 12 to 18% more when using credit cards versus cash for identical purchases. Your brain's natural spending inhibitions are literally being circumvented. Modern financial technology has taken these exploits even further. By now, pay later services like Afterpay and Klarna have perfected the art of psychological manipulation, making purchases feel almost free by breaking them into for easy payments. These services have exploded in popularity precisely because they exploit all three psychological vulnerabilities simultaneously: payment focus, temporal discounting, and ownership bias, while adding the modern twist of seamless integration into your favorite shopping sites. Social media compounds these effects by creating a culture of comparison. Sarah constantly saw friends showcasing new purchases, vacations, and experiences online, creating subtle pressure to keep up regardless of the financial consequences. Each post acted as a trigger for impulsive financial decisions justified by FOMO, fear of missing out. How? Michael's debt strategy for building wealth. While Sarah drowns in consumer debt triggered by social comparison, there's another side to borrowing money that few people understand. Did you know that some millionaires intentionally maintain debt, even when they could pay it off completely? The difference between wealth-building debt and wealth-destroying debt comes down to three crucial decisions that separate financial winners from losers. Michael's approach to debt is fundamentally different from most people's. He doesn't view all debt as inherently bad. Instead, he sees it as a tool that can either destroy wealth or build it, depending on how it's used. His framework is simple but powerful. Only use debt for assets that will increase in value or for education that boosts earning potential. This selective approach ensures that every dollar borrowed works toward building his net worth rather than diminishing it. Before taking on any debt, Michael runs it through a strict evaluation process. He asks himself, will this asset likely appreciate faster than the interest I'm paying? If the answer is no, he simply saves until he can purchase it outright. This discipline has kept him from falling into the consumer debt traps that ensnared Sarah. One of Michael's most powerful strategies is what financial experts call interest rate arbitrage. This approach is remarkably straightforward. He only uses debt when he's confident the expected return on his investment will exceed what he's paying in interest. For example, while his mortgage carries a 3.5% interest rate, his diversified investment portfolio averages 7% returns over time. This 3.5% difference represents profit that compounds year after year, effectively turning his debt into a wealth-building machine. Michael's mortgage is a perfect example of strategic debt done right. While he could have purchased a smaller home with cash, he recognized that a fixed-rate mortgage on a modestly priced home in a growing neighborhood allowed him to maintain liquidity while gaining exposure to real estate appreciation. Meanwhile, he steadfastly avoids financing depreciating assets like cars, electronics, or furniture, items that lose value the moment you acquire them. When Michael does encounter debt, he tackles it with a methodical approach known as a debt elimination hierarchy. This strategy prioritizes paying off high-interest debt first while maintaining minimum payments on lower-interest debt. This mathematical approach minimizes the total interest paid over time and accelerates the path to debt freedom. Research shows that individuals who implement such structured repayment plans significantly improve their chances of achieving long-term financial stability. Perhaps most importantly, Michael's robust emergency fund serves as a financial firewall between him and unnecessary debt. With 6 months of expenses safely tucked away in a high-yield savings account, he never needs to reach for a credit card when unexpected costs arise. This emergency cushion breaks the cycle of revolving debt that traps so many Americans. The research backs up Michael's approach. Households that implement strategic debt management have net worths up to 173% higher than those with poor debt practices, even when controlling for income level. This staggering difference highlights that it's not just how much you earn, but how intelligently you leverage financial tools that determines wealth outcomes. Michael's debt strategy also incorporates behavioral finance principles. He recognizes the emotional triggers that lead to impulsive spending and has systems in place to counter them. While Sarah falls prey to social comparison and FOMO-driven purchases, Michael evaluates potential debt through a rational lens that separates wants from needs and emotional desires from strategic investments. What's fascinating is that Michael doesn't avoid debt entirely, a common misconception about wealth building. Instead, he transforms debt from a wealth destroyer into a wealth multiplier by aligning it exclusively with appreciating assets and income-generating opportunities. This nuanced approach represents a fundamental shift in thinking that most consumers never discover. So why do most people misuse debt in ways that guarantee they'll never build wealth? The answer lies in confusing consumption with investment. We're bombarded with marketing messages that blur the line between assets and liabilities, convincing us that purchases that drain our wealth are actually enhancing it. Without a clear framework like Michael's, it's easy to justify financing lifestyle upgrades that feel good today but prevent financial freedom tomorrow. What if Sarah's alternative debt reality? The blurring of assets and liabilities isn't just a theoretical concept. It has devastating real-world financial consequences. Let's run an eye-opening calculation to see what would have happened if Sarah had followed Michael's debt philosophy from day one. If we total up the interest Sarah has paid across her various debts over the last decade, the numbers are staggering. That $25,000 car loan at 6% interest didn't just cost her the sticker price. It silently drained over $7,000 in interest payments from her wealth-building potential. And that's just one example from her debt portfolio. Now imagine an alternate financial timeline where Sarah never took on that car loan or financed her furniture. The monthly payments she's currently making toward those debts, money that's essentially evaporating into thin air through interest charges, could have been redirected into investments instead. This is where the true opportunity cost of debt becomes painfully clear. Had Sarah invested just $300 per month, roughly what she pays toward her car and furniture loans, that money could have grown to more than $40,000 over the past decade with a modest 7% annual return. That's $40,000 of wealth she could have built instead of the $0 she has to show for years of car payments. But the impact goes beyond just the interest avoided. When we look at this alternate timeline for Sarah, we need to consider the psychological freedom she would have experienced. Without the constant weight of monthly payments and the stress of maintaining her debt obligations, alternative Sarah would have approached her financial decisions from a position of strength rather than vulnerability. Research consistently shows that financial stress doesn't just hurt your bank account. It creates a negative spiral affecting mental health and decision-making. Sarah's current debt situation isn't just costing her money. It's likely impacting her overall well-being and creating barriers to clear financial thinking. In our alternate timeline, Sarah would have approached major purchases differently from the start. Instead of immediately financing that new car after her first promotion, she might have invested her raise for a year while continuing to drive her paid-off vehicle. After 12 months, she could have purchased a quality used car with cash while still having money left over to invest. This alternate path demonstrates the power of strategic delayed gratification. By temporarily postponing certain purchases, alternative Sarah would have positioned herself to enjoy significantly greater financial freedom later, without sacrificing her long-term quality of life. The most fascinating aspect of this comparison isn't just the dollars and cents. It's recognizing that alternative Sarah and actual Sarah would have identical incomes throughout this journey. They would have received the same paychecks, the same promotions, and faced the same economic conditions. The dramatic difference in their financial situations comes down entirely to how they used those identical resources. This highlights the fundamental truth that wealth building isn't primarily about how much you earn. It's about how strategically you deploy what you have. Sarah and Michael aren't operating with different resources. They're simply making different decisions about how to allocate those resources. When we expand this alternate timeline over decades rather than just years, the contrast becomes even more dramatic. The compounding effect of these different approaches to debt creates exponentially diverging financial trajectories. By age 40 or 50, alternative Sarah and actual Sarah would be living in completely different financial universes despite having earned identical salaries throughout their careers. For viewers feeling overwhelmed by their current debt situation, there's an important silver lining here. The power to change your financial trajectory is available starting today, regardless of past decisions. Sarah can still implement Michael's debt strategy now, even if she didn't start with it. While she can't recover the lost decade of potential wealth building, she can prevent losing another decade to the same patterns. The first step is creating a debt elimination hierarchy, prioritizing high-interest debts like credit cards while maintaining minimum payments on lower-interest obligations. Next comes establishing an emergency fund to prevent future debt cycles. Finally, as debts are cleared, immediately redirecting those former payments into investments creates lasting wealth-building momentum. Why? The financial education gap between Michael and Sarah. Beyond the mechanics of debt, there's another invisible force that quietly determines your financial future. Gen Z faces a startling reality check. With only 38% answering basic financial literacy questions correctly, they've earned the unfortunate title of America's least financially literate generation. This isn't just about getting quiz answers wrong. It translates into real money evaporating from their bank accounts. When Michael and Sarah graduated, they possessed nearly identical financial knowledge. But what happened next created a massive wealth divide that extended far beyond their debt strategies. Sarah took what seemed like the easiest path to financial learning. She scrolled through Instagram reels about money, listened to whatever advice her friends shared over happy hour, and trusted financial salespeople who promised the best investment products. This passive approach to financial education left critical gaps in her knowledge. "I don't have time to read boring finance books," Sarah would say, assuming that financial wisdom would somehow find her through casual conversations and social media snippets. When she received a financial marketing brochure offering professional guidance, she'd sign up without understanding the fine print or fee structures. Meanwhile, Michael approached financial education like a mission. While Sarah scrolled TikTok before bed, Michael read one personal finance book every month. When Sarah binged Netflix shows on weekends, Michael took online courses about investing and tax strategies. He didn't wait for financial knowledge to find him. He hunted it down relentlessly. The financial cost of Sarah's knowledge gaps is staggering. Research shows that financial illiteracy in America costs an estimated $388 billion annually. On a personal level, Sarah's specific knowledge deficiencies created expensive blind spots. Without understanding tax optimization, Sarah missed thousands in deductions and credits each year. She filed the simplest tax forms possible, overlooking legitimate write-offs and tax-advantaged accounts that could have saved her significant money. Her investment ignorance led her to keep $30,000 sitting in a checking account earning 0.01% interest, while inflation eroded its value by 2 to 3% annually. When she finally did invest, she chose high-fee mutual funds recommended by a commission-based advisor, unknowingly surrendering another 1 to 2% of her returns to unnecessary fees. Without insurance fundamentals, Sarah overpaid for coverage she didn't need while remaining dangerously underinsured in critical areas. And her retirement planning amounted to "I'll figure it out later." Each year of delay costing her thousands in compound growth. The most alarming statistic? People with very low financial literacy spend 7 times more hours dealing with personal finance problems than those with strong financial knowledge. Sarah wasn't just losing money. She was losing precious time wrestling with financial fires that proper knowledge would have prevented entirely. What makes this especially troubling is where Sarah learned about money. Studies show 75% of Americans learn about personal finance from family and 48% from social media. often perpetuating financial myths and misunderstandings across generations. With only 26 states requiring high school students to take personal finance courses, most young adults enter the workforce financially illiterate. Let's calculate the exact 10-year cost of Sarah's knowledge gaps. Tax optimization ignorance. Approximately $2,000 annually in missed deductions and credits equals $20,000 over 10 years. Investment inefficiency. $30,000 earning virtually no interest instead of 7% market returns equals $27,000 in foregone growth, plus another $15,000 lost to excessive fees on her investments. Insurance inefficiency. Overpaying by roughly $1,000 annually equals $10,000 wasted over a decade. Retirement planning delays. Starting retirement savings 5 years late equals approximately $45,000 in lost compound growth by age 65. Total cost of Sarah's financial knowledge gaps. $117,000 over just 10 years. Even more revealing is research showing financial literacy correlates more strongly with net worth than income across all demographics. Two people earning identical salaries can end up with dramatically different wealth levels based primarily on their financial knowledge. This explains why the PFIN Index, which measures financial literacy among U.S. adults, found that comprehension of financial risk has declined to just 35%, creating a dangerous knowledge void that affects countless financial decisions. What? The 5 financial concepts that changed Michael's life. That knowledge void isn't just a statistic. It's the invisible wall standing between you and wealth. Ever wonder why some people seem to effortlessly build money while others work twice as hard with nothing to show for it? The answer lies in 5 specific financial concepts that millionaires understand, but nobody taught you in school. Let's peek inside Michael's financial toolkit and discover the concepts that completely transformed his wealth-building journey. While Sarah struggled with financial basics, Michael mastered 5 key principles that gave him a massive advantage in the wealth-building game. First, Michael grasped the true power of compound interest, Einstein's 8th wonder of the world. Unlike Sarah, who saw saving as simply setting money aside, Michael understood that compound interest turns small, consistent investments into wealth machines. When Michael invested $500 monthly, he wasn't just saving $6,000 per year. He was activating a wealth multiplication system where his money made money, which then made even more money. This completely shifted his perspective from seeing investments as sacrifice to viewing them as opportunity. Studies confirm that people who truly understand compound interest are significantly more likely to maintain consistent saving and investing habits that lead to substantial wealth over time. Second, Michael leveraged tax-advantaged accounts in ways Sarah never considered. While Sarah paid full taxes on her income before saving what little remained, Michael strategically reduced his taxable income through his 401k contributions. He also maximized his IRA to create a second tax-advantaged growth engine. By understanding these vehicles, Michael legally paid thousands less in taxes annually while simultaneously building wealth faster. These accounts allowed his investments to grow tax-free or tax-deferred, creating a powerful acceleration effect that Sarah completely missed. The third concept that separated Michael from Sarah was asset allocation, the strategic distribution of investments across different categories. When market volatility hit, Sarah panicked and sold investments at the worst possible times. Meanwhile, Michael had carefully diversified his portfolio across stocks, bonds, and other assets based on his risk tolerance and time horizon. This balanced approach protected him during downturns and positioned him to capture upside during recoveries. Research demonstrates that proper asset allocation is often more important for long-term performance than picking individual investments, a concept Sarah never grasped. Fourth, Michael applied rigorous cash flow management principles to his financial life. While Sarah loosely tracked expenses, Michael maintained clear visibility into his income-to-expense ratio and ensured his spending aligned with his wealth-building goals. He categorized expenses as either wealth-building, wealth-neutral, or wealth-draining, then systematically minimized the latter category. This wasn't about penny pinching. It was about strategic allocation of resources. Studies show that people who actively manage their cash flow this way consistently build more substantial savings and achieve greater financial stability regardless of income level. Finally, Michael internalized the time value of money concept. which recognizes that $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow due to its earning potential. This principle informed all his financial decisions, from choosing between leasing versus buying a car to evaluating potential investments. When faced with a $5,000 furniture purchase, Michael didn't just ask, "Can I afford this?" like Sarah did. Instead, he calculated what that $5,000 could grow to over 10 or 20 years if invested instead. This opportunity cost thinking prevented countless wealth-draining decisions that Sarah made without a second thought. The contrast between Michael and Sarah's financial knowledge created dramatically different outcomes. While Michael's understanding of compound interest drove him to start investing immediately, Sarah's ignorance led her to delay retirement savings for years, costing her tens of thousands in missed growth. When tax season arrived, Michael strategically maximized deductions and credits, while Sarah overpaid the government year after year. During market volatility, Michael's diversification strategy protected his portfolio, while Sarah's lack of asset allocation knowledge led to emotional selling at market bottoms. The most painful gap was in everyday cash flow management. While Michael's clear tracking systems helped him consistently save and invest, Sarah's fuzzy approach to budgeting left her wondering where her money disappeared to each month. And whenever big purchases arose, Sarah's failure to understand opportunity cost led to impulsive decisions that felt Michael's good in financial education but devastated her long-term financial literacy. Health isn't something you're born with. It's something you deliberately build. While Michael and Sarah had the same access to financial information, their approach to learning created a massive wealth gap. The difference wasn't just what they knew, but how they acquired and applied that knowledge. Michael's approach to financial education wasn't complicated or expensive. It followed a three-part system that most people completely miss. Let's break down his method for developing millionaire-level financial knowledge without spending a fortune. First, Michael embraced continuous learning as a non-negotiable habit. Unlike Sarah, who consumed random financial content on social media, Michael created a structured learning schedule. Every month, he read one personal finance book, dedicating just 20 minutes each evening to this habit. Weekly, he listened to financial podcasts during his commute, turning what would be wasted time into a wealth-building opportunity. And quarterly, he invested in one online course focused on a specific financial skill he wanted to master. Michael didn't just consume information, he had a system for implementation, explains Dr. Jennifer Rivera, behavioral finance expert. This implementation cycle is the second part of his system and what truly separates Michael from most financial education consumers. Whenever Michael learned a new concept, he immediately looked for ways to apply it in his real life. If he read about tax loss harvesting in a book, he would review his investment portfolio the very next day to see if he could implement this strategy. Michael's implementation cycle followed 4 steps. Learn a concept, apply it immediately to his finances, measure the results after a set period, and refine his approach based on what worked. This constant feedback loop transformed theoretical knowledge into practical results, something Sarah never achieved despite occasionally reading financial articles. Self-directed financial education can be more effective than formal education when combined with implementation, notes the Financial Literacy Institute. This approach allows individuals to actively engage with financial concepts and apply them in real-world scenarios, leading to better retention. The third component of Michael's system was expert validation. Unlike Sarah, who relied on whatever financial advice appeared in her social media feed, Michael verified information through multiple authoritative sources. Before making any significant financial decision, he would consult at least 3 different expert opinions, whether from books, certified financial planners, or academic research papers. This approach protected Michael from financial misinformation and the blind leading the blind syndrome that trapped Sarah. While her friends recommended high-fee investment products they barely understood themselves, Michael carefully vetted every financial idea before adoption. Michael also created what he called his personal financial curriculum, a customized learning plan based on his specific goals and knowledge gaps. He identified areas where he needed improvement, such as tax optimization or real estate investing, and deliberately sought out resources to strengthen these weak points. This targeted approach meant every hour he spent learning had maximum impact on his financial growth. His resource selection was equally strategic. Michael maintained a list of what he considered the 5 most influential financial books, 3 most reliable podcasts, and 2 most practical online courses. These weren't necessarily the most popular resources, but the ones that offered actionable strategies aligned with his financial goals. Whenever friends asked for financial education recommendations, he shared this curated list rather than overwhelming them with options. What made Michael's approach particularly effective was how he integrated multiple learning formats. Books gave him in-depth understanding, podcasts kept him updated on current trends and strategies, while courses provided structured frameworks and communities of like-minded learners. This multi-channel approach ensured he developed a comprehensive financial education that covered both timeless principles and cutting-edge strategies. The results speak for themselves. While Michael's investment in financial education cost him perhaps a few $100s annually and 5 to 7 hours of time each month, the return on this investment was astronomical. Literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in wealth creation over a decade. Financial experts recommend structuring personal financial education to include continuous learning, practical application of concepts, and validation of information through multiple expert sources, notes the TIAA Institute. This multifaceted approach ensures a comprehensive understanding of financial principles, the daily habits that separate millionaires from everyone else aren't complicated, they're consistent. 20 minutes of reading each night. Implementation of new concepts within 48 hours of learning them. Verification of information through multiple sources before making decisions. These small daily actions, repeated consistently over years, transformed Michael's financial trajectory, while Sarah remained trapped in financial confusion. What if Sarah's knowledge transformation? The financial gap between Michael and Sarah isn't just about dollars. It's about decisions driven by knowledge. Think about this. Every single hour spent on quality financial education can generate thousands in lifetime wealth, making it possibly the highest ROI activity available to anyone with an internet connection. So what stopped Sarah from following the same path as Michael? And are you making the same wealth-killing mistake? Let's rewind the clock and imagine an alternative timeline where Sarah embraced financial education from day one. Instead of scrolling through social media for hours each day, what if Sarah had dedicated just 3 hours a month to improving her financial knowledge? That's less time than most people spend watching a single movie. In this alternative timeline, Sarah implements Michael's exact learning system. Reading for 20 minutes each night, listening to financial podcasts during her commute, and taking one online course each quarter. The transformation is remarkable, but not because Sarah needed to be a financial genius. She just needed basic knowledge in a few key areas. First, let's talk about tax optimization. If alternative Sarah had learned about tax-advantaged accounts, she would have immediately maxed out her employer's 401k match and opened a Roth IRA. This one knowledge area alone would have saved her thousands in taxes annually while simultaneously building her retirement accounts. With Gen Z scoring only 38% on financial literacy assessments, Sarah's simple tax education would have immediately put her ahead of most of her peers. The PFIN index shows Americans are most knowledgeable about debt and borrowing, 58% correct answers, but significantly less knowledgeable about risk comprehension, 35% correct answers. This knowledge gap is exactly what plagued Sarah. Alternative Sarah, however, would have understood the fundamental principle of investment risk versus reward, allowing her to make confident decisions about her investment allocations instead of keeping large amounts of cash in low-interest accounts. Cash flow management represents another critical area where knowledge creates wealth. Alternative Sarah would have categorized her expenses as wealth building, wealth neutral, or wealth draining, allowing her to optimize her spending patterns from the start. She'd have recognized that every dollar has a job, either working for her future or satisfying a present need. The financial impact of these knowledge gains is staggering. Let's do the math. If alternative Sarah had invested the same $800 monthly that actual Sarah spent on lifestyle inflation, she'd have approximately $139,000 after 10 years at a conservative 7% return. Add to that the tax savings from proper account utilization, roughly $2,000 annually, and she'd have another $20,000. Better cash flow management could have eliminated her $15,000 in credit card debt, saving her over $3,300 in annual interest payments. When we quantify the total impact of Sarah's knowledge gaps, the numbers are shocking. Proper investment knowledge alone could have increased her returns by 2 to 3 percentage points annually on all invested assets. Over 10 years, this compounds dramatically. The knowledge gap between alternative Sarah and actual Sarah represents over $200,000 in lost wealth by age 32, all without earning a single extra dollar of income. The most powerful aspect of this alternative timeline isn't just the numbers, it's the psychological transformation. Alternative Sarah would have developed financial confidence instead of anxiety. She would approach money decisions with clarity rather than confusion. The stress that keeps actual Sarah up at night worrying about bills would be replaced by the calm that comes from knowing exactly where she stands financially and where she's headed. Research confirms what Michael intuitively understood. Individuals who spend just 3 hours monthly on financial education have been shown to have a 40% higher net worth across all income levels. This isn't about becoming a Wall Street wizard. It's about understanding fundamentals like the time value of money, compound interest, and tax optimization that schools rarely teach. The good news: it's not too late for Sarah, or for you. The financial education gap can be closed starting today. The knowledge that took Michael a decade to accumulate is more accessible than ever through books, podcasts, and online courses. The most expensive financial education is the one you don't get, and each day of delay has a measurable opportunity cost. What about the psychological triggers that might be holding you back from this knowledge transformation? Fear of complexity makes many avoid financial topics altogether. The illusion of financial expertise through social media creates false confidence. And perhaps most damaging is the belief that I'll learn about money once I have more of it. A belief that guarantees you'll never accumulate wealth in the first place. The 30-Day Financial Reset Challenge. Breaking free from destructive financial patterns doesn't require years of discipline. It just takes one focused month of intentional action. The gap between knowledge and implementation is where most financial journeys stall. But our 30-Day Financial Reset Challenge creates the perfect bridge to transform what you've learned into lasting habits. Day 1 begins with a complete financial inventory, the foundation of your reset journey. This isn't just about checking account balances. It's about creating a comprehensive snapshot of your current situation. Pull your bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, and loan documents. This initial audit reveals the true patterns in your spending and helps identify exactly where your money is flowing each month. Once you understand your starting point, we tackle lifestyle inflation head-on with a 3-pronged approach. First, conduct an expense audit where you categorize every single transaction from the past month as either essential, non-essential, or wealth-building. This exercise often reveals shocking patterns. Many participants discover they're spending hundreds monthly on subscriptions they barely use. Next comes the social media detox, a crucial intervention that many overlook. For 7 days, you'll completely disconnect from platforms that trigger comparison-based spending. This isn't just about willpower. It's about removing the environmental cues that subconsciously drive your spending decisions. When you return to social media after the detox, you'll do so with new boundaries and awareness of how these platforms influence your financial choices. The third lifestyle inflation intervention implements the 30-day desire rule. You'll create a wants list where you document every non-essential purchase desire without actually buying anything. The magic happens when you revisit this list after 30 days and discover how many of those must-have items no longer seem important. Week 2 focuses on resetting your relationship with debt through concrete actions. Begin by creating an interest rate inventory, a simple spreadsheet listing every debt you carry, from highest to lowest interest rate. This visual representation often delivers a wake-up call when you calculate exactly how much interest you're paying annually. With your interest rates laid bare, you'll develop a debt elimination hierarchy tailored to your specific situation. This isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Your plan will account for your unique cash flow, interest rates, and financial goals. Some participants discover they're better off targeting high-interest debts aggressively, while others benefit from consolidation or refinancing strategies. Speaking of refinancing, you'll explore options to potentially lower your interest rates across various debt categories. Even a 2% reduction on a mortgage or student loan can free up significant cash flow that can be redirected toward building wealth instead of servicing debt. The final component, and perhaps most transformative, is the financial education reset. Each day, you'll dedicate just 15 minutes to learning one specific financial concept. This isn't about information overload. It's about focused, applicable knowledge. Monday might be tax optimization, Tuesday could be investment fundamentals, and Wednesday might cover retirement account strategies. What makes this education component different is the implementation exercises. Each weekend, you'll complete a hands-on assignment that applies what you've learned that week. For example, after learning about tax-advantaged accounts, you might adjust your 401k contribution or open an HSA. These small actions compound dramatically over time. To make implementation seamless, we provide a downloadable 30-day calendar with specific daily actions already mapped out. Each morning, you'll wake up knowing exactly what financial task to complete that day, eliminating decision fatigue and ensuring consistent progress. The science behind this challenge is compelling. Research indicates that habit formation takes approximately 21 days, which is why our 30-day time frame includes buffer days to cement these new behaviors. By day 30, you'll have not only broken destructive financial patterns, but established new wealth-building habits that operate on autopilot. Michael and Sarah, 10 years later. While our 30-day challenge kickstarts your financial transformation, have you ever wondered what the actual long-term impact of these habits looks like? Let's fast forward and examine how Michael and Sarah's different choices have shaped their lives a decade after graduation. Michael's journey hasn't just been about accumulating money. His $300,000 net worth represents something far more valuable: freedom. Unlike most of his peers, Michael has created multiple income streams beyond his salary: dividend-paying investments, a small rental property, and a weekend consulting gig he genuinely enjoys. The key difference in Michael's life isn't just the numbers in his bank account. It's that he now works because he chooses to, not because financial desperation forces him to. When unexpected expenses arise, like when his car needed major repairs last month, Michael handles them without stress. His emergency fund absorbs these financial shocks without disrupting his lifestyle or forcing him into debt. This financial buffer has eliminated one of life's most common stressors. Meanwhile, Sarah's reality looks dramatically different. Despite receiving the same promotions and raises as Michael, she remains trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. Each salary increase has been quickly absorbed by lifestyle upgrades, leaving her financial foundation perpetually shaky. When her refrigerator broke last month, she had no choice but to add another $1,200 to her already maxed-out credit cards. The psychological toll of this financial instability is significant. According to our research, 88% of Americans experience financial anxiety and 65% cite money as their top source of stress. Sarah lives with this constant background anxiety, checking her bank balance before every purchase and dreading unexpected expenses. This stress isn't just a personal problem. It has broader economic consequences. Studies show that financial stress costs the U.S. economy approximately $282 billion annually due to decreased productivity and increased healthcare costs associated with mental health issues. Sarah's productivity at work suffers during periods of financial strain, creating a negative feedback loop that impacts her career advancement. The root of Sarah's struggles isn't a lack of income, but a lack of financial literacy. Our research indicates that 47% of U.S. adults grade their personal finance knowledge as a C or worse, which leads to poor financial decisions with significant long-term consequences. This knowledge gap has prevented Sarah from recognizing and interrupting her destructive financial patterns before they become entrenched habits. What's particularly striking about Michael and Sarah's divergent paths is that the gap between them continues to widen exponentially. The difference between their net worths isn't static, it's accelerating. As Michael's investments grow, they generate more income, which he reinvests, creating a powerful snowball effect. Meanwhile, Sarah's debt continues to compound in the opposite direction, making financial progress increasingly difficult. Looking forward to the next decade, this divergence will become even more dramatic. If current patterns continue, Michael could potentially triple or quadruple his net worth by age 42, while Sarah might still be struggling with revolving debt and minimal savings. This is the true power of compound interest. It works just as powerfully against you as it does for you. But Sarah's financial future isn't predetermined. She can implement these same wealth-building habits today and dramatically change her trajectory. While she can't recover the decade of lost compound growth, she can stop the bleeding and begin building wealth immediately. Financial transformation doesn't require a windfall or lottery win. It requires consistent application of the principles Michael has followed since graduation. The benefits of making this shift extend far beyond finances. Studies show that financial freedom positively impacts overall life satisfaction, health outcomes, and relationship quality, with financially secure individuals reporting higher levels of happiness and lower levels of stress. By breaking free from financial anxiety, Sarah could experience improvements in her mental health, physical well-being, and personal relationships. The gap between Michael and Sarah's situations perfectly illustrates the long-term impact of financial habits. As our research states, small, consistent decisions can lead to vastly different outcomes over a decade. Their divergent journeys weren't created by luck, inheritance, or even income differences. They were shaped by hundreds of small choices made consistently over time. How can you recognize if you're following Sarah's path rather than Michael's? Look for these warning signs: regularly carrying credit card balances, upgrading your lifestyle with each raise, maintaining less than 3 months of expenses in emergency savings, and making financial decisions based primarily on monthly payment amounts rather than total cost. The good news is that financial transformation is possible at any point. By implementing the habits we've discussed, controlling lifestyle inflation, using debt strategically, and committing to financial education, you can interrupt destructive patterns and create a new financial trajectory starting today. As we wrap up today's journey through the 3 wealth killers, remember this: financial transformation isn't about earning more, it's about mastering the fundamentals. Benjamin Franklin wisely noted, "Rather go to bed without dinner than to rise in debt." This timeless wisdom reminds us that financial discipline beats income every time. The power of small, consistent habits cannot be overstated. Imagine saving just $1 the first week of January, then increasing it by $1 weekly. By December, you'll have over $1,300. A structured financial reset starts with honest assessment, clear goal setting, and creating a realistic budget. Studies consistently show that financially literate individuals save more for retirement and manage debt effectively. Your financial freedom journey